Alright then. Haven't launched the League client in a while, but there is that Bringer of Ruin motion comic, which I haven't seen yet, and I figured I might as well record my initial reaction to whatever that's going to turn out to be. So, let's see. Enter motion comic. Alright, I've turned all the sound off. There we go. Power in and of itself is useless. Hello, Mordekaiser. What matters is how it is wielded. Distant past, Katashli. Okay. Renowned general in a great army. His strength was formidable, but it was all in service of his lord. Salusal, the unconquered king. Oh, hang on. Wait. Did that pause it? Good. Mordekaiser, huh? Hey, buddy. Guess that's what you look like. Huh. Unexceptional, I'll say. That's not necessarily a criticism. Mordekaiser as a character is... I mean, he has his fans, right? But my reading of his story and my understanding of what his narrative is about... Oh, the music stops when I click away. My understanding of what his story is about is that Mordekaiser is, on a pretty fundamental level, kind of petty and pathetic. And, like, a little bit, like, not nearly as exceptional as he thinks he is, right? That's kind of the point of the story, because Mordekaiser spends his entire life, like, conquering everything and, like, bringing all the lands of the world under his command and blah, blah, blah. All of it with this, like, expectation that because I have done this, I shall be received in the afterlife as, like, a conquering king, and I'll have my reward, and it'll be great, and I'll be confirmed that I am the best man ever who's ever done all of the things, and I'll be I'll have a feast, and I'll be feted, and I'll be celebrated, and everyone will think I'm the coolest, most awesomest guy who's ever lived. And then he dies, and he gets to the afterlife, and there's nothing. Nothing. Just an endless expanse of gray sand, right? And Mordekaiser's like, but I wanted a party! Like, he throws a fucking hissy fit, right? Like, it's like, but I was promised! They told me they were having a party for me in the afterlife! And he doesn't get, like, the afterlife he was promised. So there is, like, this element of pettiness about him, right? This man who has dedicated his entire life to just being the biggest asshole on planet Earth with the reasonable expectation, because, like, that's the culture he's raised in, right? Like, a culture that valorizes this bullshit. And then he gets to the afterlife, and that's not... No, sorry. Like, sorry, buddy. You're not special. You don't get any special treatment. And, like, death is just what happens to you. And Mordekaiser is like, he throws a hissy fit about it, right? Like, he's like, well, I'll become the king of undead Mordekaiser, and I'll make my own afterlife with blackjack and hookers. Fuck you, right? Because he's incapable of accepting the reality of life. He insists that things must go the way that he envisioned them. And that's petty and selfish and a little bit pathetic, right? It's a slightly pathetic way to live, like one where you are so obsessed with your entitlement to eternal reward. So, like, the fact that Mordekaiser here looks pretty unexceptional, right? Like, yeah, he's big, big chunky man with, like, but he doesn't really look at, like, anything that special. It's like, yeah, I can see how someone who's, like, a big fan of Mordekaiser and who wants him to be very cool could be disappointed by this. But, like, I'm not really. I think, like, that's kind of accurate to the character, is that he's not nearly as cool as he thinks he is. That he's not nearly as special as he thinks he is. Like, I think there's a point to making him a little bit generic and boring in that sense. So I'm kind of a fan of this for meta level reasons, for thematic reasons. Although, as a character, like, if this was meant to be, like, if they're turning this thing into an Exalted skin, for example, I'd be like, Really? It's like, that's what, like, because that's another one of the problems with Exalted skins, right? Like, you're selling that shit for 250 bucks. You can't do, like, you can't do Clever Clog's shit, like, oh, but he's boring on purpose because of, like, I like that kind of stuff. Like, I would have some respect for it, but that's not going to work as a commercial product, right? Which is one of the pressures that gacha puts on stuff like this, is like, when you need it to be something that people will wail for and sell, you kind of can't explore an aesthetic like that, right? Like, you can't really make the dude kind of a shitty guy on purpose, right? You can't make him kind of boring and unexceptional on purpose. If you're selling that for 250 bucks and you want people to wail for it, he better look exceptional, and he better look exceptional on purpose, right? Like, it's... Anyway, that's a whole different thing. We're talking about the motion comic, and, like, speaking of which, I would like to know who the artist is. Because I feel like I might recognize the art style, but not with significant enough clarity that I'd be like, oh yeah, no, I know exactly who this is. Violence often attracts more violence, and the scent of death is a powerful draw. That would be a demon, then, attracted to the death and destruction that Mordekaiser's army is, or Sanuzan's army is wreaking. Sanuzal kept no friends. They were only those he could use. And those he destroyed. All demons are the same. In Runeterra, they lie. They defy. They hunger. And they should not be underestimated. Katashli's devotion to his leader was unquestionable. Still, he was only human. Yeah, no, that's not gonna go well for you, buddy. You ain't no Yone, I'm afraid. And that seems to be a pretty powerful demon, all things considered. I don't think that's just an Atakahn. Zanuzal was not one for sentiment. And yet, he would not let this life go easily. Using arcane scrolls seized from his conquests, Sanuzal found one way to thwart death. Okay, we got some Black Rose aesthetic going on here, right? Like all of the army that's sort of going on here, it all has sort of the beginnings of Nox's aesthetics, right? Wish it was a little easier to scroll. It all has the beginnings of Nox's aesthetics, right? Because this is like the deep past of Nox's before, you know, all of it. And I do like that, like, the sorcerer cultists that he's got going on here. There's definitely some Black Rose aesthetic going on there. Like, that's well chosen, I think. A binding. The cost of which would not be his to bear. United in one monstrous body, Katashli and Atakhan's existence became one of horror and violence. Sanuzal's conquests only hastened. I mean, as opposed to the life of peace and joy that he was leading as a member of this conquering army beforehand? I don't know, man. This feels less like a total degradation into a perversion of himself and more like just kind of the logical endpoint of where Mordekaiser is going. Oh hey, Mordekaiser's putting on more of his armor. Atakahn served dutifully. But upon the Conqueror's first death, his hold on the demon was broken. Yeah. Okay, so we're going for like a wall carving. I don't know that that's entirely successful. It's going for a sort of like, not necessarily Egyptian, But, like, the kinds of wall carvings that we associate with ancient cultures kind of aesthetic and style, but it's too modern. It's too modern, it's too cartoony, its sense of space and depth is... It doesn't really evoke the visuals of what you would associate with a wall carving, I don't think. I see the idea, right? But this looks too much like it was drawn by modern hands to really sell it. His deeds faded into myth until Sanusal would rise again. That then, okay, this, like, Mordekaiser with the ancient armor probably would make for a better Exalted Skin. Because this is him at his most, you know, self-indulgent and like, yes, I am the conqueror of the world, most sort of violently self-satisfied right before he goes to the afterlife and finds that oopsie-doopsie, not how it works, buddy. Centuries later, as the Iron Revenant, Mordekaiser called on his fallen soldiers shadows from his past, including his bringer of ruin, Atakahn. But the demon had grown used to its freedom and needed a reminder of who it served. Oh, hey, LeBlanc. Are we connecting LeBlanc with Atakahn? That's interesting. Okay. There's some really, really nice, especially in this scene, where we're playing with, like, the contrast between Mordekaiser's blue and Atakahn's red, right? It's a tastefully done motion comic also, by the way, I will say. Like, the use of, like, glow effects, the use of smoke and billowing and stuff like that, it's not overbearing, which sometimes can happen with, like, motion comics where they try so hard to essentially turn it into... Oops, a little bug there. Where they try so hard to essentially turn it into, like, little anime cutscenes, essentially, where they over-animate things. Like, they do too much. I like this approach quite a bit, where it's really just elements in the scene that could be expected to billow, right? That could be expected to move, like the smoke coming out of the tent here, and like the little tendrils of magic, and like the split between the person and the demon. Right here, the sort of spell effects of whatever it is Atakahn is doing to the poor guy, and whatever it is Mordekaiser is doing to the demon. They're just sort of putting something on that, but they're not, like, they're not making the characters move excessively, which is the other thing that can happen, is like you get these things of, like, where the characters have this awkward, like, stiff, flat animation loop, where they sort of, like, they are moving and unmoving at the same time in a way that just isn't particularly compelling. The approach that they're taking here is one that I think is pretty well judged, right? Like here, the struggle between demon and man is like we see the shaking of the struggle. This is right on the edge of being too much. Because when you try to animate these flat 2D images that way, you kind of reveal the paper doll puppetness of it all, right? This is right on the edge of where it would be over-animated, but it's just for that one panel, and then we move on to the other thing. So I like that. As a piece of artistic craft, this is one of the better motion comics I've seen. Anyway, hi, LeBlanc. Again, the wall carving thing just kind of doesn't work. The years that followed brought untold death, destruction, and at last, opportunity. Rebellion, yeah. This especially does not work as wall carving. Like, this does not look like... Look at Mordekaiser's mace, for example, in terms of how you would represent... And also his armor, like, just the depth and stuff. Like, this is really not how you would represent figures like that in carving. But you can see that they try to sort of go for the geometric, like, this is the sort of aesthetic stylization that you would do when you were carving something into a wall. And then they kind of just abandon it when they add, like, these levels and layers of depth that don't really work. Yeah, this wall carving business is not successful, I don't think. I will never forget that day. The only thing sweeter than wielding power. Hello, LeBlanc. And I see this is where you took the Black Rose symbol from, is from whatever spell you cast to seal Mordekaiser, huh? Is taking it away. Interesting. I like that. I like that, like, hey, Vladimir was there. Hang on. Wait, no, that's not. That's a retcon, if Vladimir was there. Because, like... Let me just consult the timeline here. There is a timeline over on the League of Legends wiki, which is very useful. You can't see that. Let me just... Nope, that's Firefox. That's not really what I'm looking for. There. Kind of. Let me just... Now you can see it. Let's see. Mordekaiser. Because... Oh, no, yeah, no. Vladimir would have been around. Because Vladimir is from the time around the Great Darkin War at some point. Like, at some point here, Vladimir is enslaved to his master, who's a Darkin, who teaches him blood magic. And then the reign of the Iron Revenant comes, well, substantially later. Okay, so Vladimir would have been present in the timeline at that point. Interestingly, though, I don't think his lore up until now has included that part of a collaboration with the Black Rose. Because... Let's see. At the height of the reign of the Iron Revenant, it was said that a mythic and bloodthirsty fiend haunted the coastal cliffs of eastern Valorant, demanding on lives of blah. Few were welcome in his lair until the day a pale sorcerers approached barbarian god with an offer. They feasted as equals. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. So I'm remembering that wrong, then. That... Has there been updates to that? Ah, they don't have the dates. But no, okay, I just forgot that part. My memory of it was that Vladimir mostly uninvolved himself. 'Cause that's sort of... that was sort of the concept behind his... Let's see, where is it? It's the... Art is Life, right? Is that Vladimir, like, he takes these long periods of just, like, completely uninvolving himself with the world, and he doesn't really... His portrayal, at least such as I read it, was that he didn't really care that much about Mordekaiser as such. It was mostly, oh, this is an opportunity to grab power, but he wasn't really involved with it. Huh. I guess I was wrong about that. That's nice. Okay. I am pleased to be wrong, actually. I forgot that they tied him in with Mordekaiser. How much did they tie him into? Yeah, no, okay, he was always there. Cool, good. I'm happy with that. Let's see, let's get that motion comic back up there. As I said, power in and of itself... Oh. Power in and of itself is useless. What matters is how it is wielded. But it requires one more thing. Time, a currency I've never lacked. Plans are simple things. All that is needed is the right moment. And a little push. Okay, so that explains why Atakahn is different now. Because presumably, I guess I got experience just for doing that. And that would explain the difference, right? Like, because in Legends of Runeterra, Atakahn takes a decidedly more Mordekaiser-esque form, right? In fact, let me just I have a web browser. Let me bring him up. There he is. In Legends of Runeterra, he takes on a decidedly more Mordekaiser form, right? Much more the Iron Revenant, much more sort of like shrouded and cloaked and like very humanoid in his conception. That's something very different than how he looks on the Rift now, right? He's reverted clearly, like, I think the implication here is that LeBlanc has purged the soul of loyalty, right? Like, whichever part of the person that was in there who was loyal to Mordekaiser, the implication, I guess, would be, at least design-wise, that LeBlanc has purged that aspect and reverted Atakahn back to a more primal demonic form. Okay. That explains the character design difference. Good, interesting. Explains also why he's planting flowers all over the Rift. That's like a black rose thing. Okay, fair enough. So if LeBlanc is, like, reviving and unleashing Atakahn, I can't see any reason why she would do that, except that she thinks the return of Mordekaiser is, like, imminent, right? Like, that would be the reason to bring back such a powerful foe of Mordekaiser, right? Like, to free Atakahn and be able to bring him to bear in the fight against Mordekaiser. Because that's something I'm wondering about when it comes to this, like, Noxus season, right? Is the ticking clock in the Noxus storyline is Mordekaiser, right? The threat of his imminent return is the drama that's supposed to bring, like, the narrative push, right, for characters to take drastic action, for things to come to a head, right? Swain knows about Mordekaiser. He knows that he's coming back, but he has different ideas about what to do about it than LeBlanc does, it seems. My theory is still that Swain and LeBlanc, like, they performatively try and kill each other, but they're actually collaborating. Like, I think it's like a long game kind of Sanatos Gambit sort of situation where they're each manipulating the other with their own plans and ideas, but specifically for the purpose of maneuvering one another into the position where they think they need to be in order to be able to deal with Mordekaiser when he returns. That's my theory, is that LeBlanc and Swain, yeah, they try to kill each other, but they're not opponents as such. They're just working together from different angles. And so Mordekaiser is like the narrative threat that hovers over Noxus, right? Like, Mordekaiser is coming back. He could come back at any moment, and when he does, oh, King of Undeath, it's like the Ruination times 100 billion or whatever, right? That's the idea of it. I always thought that because they did the Ruination, though, right? Like, because they already pulled the trigger on Undead King launches World Conquest, and it didn't go so well, that Mordekaiser was not gonna be in the picture for a while, right? Like, like, we're not just gonna go back to that and try it again. That they were gonna move on to one of the other world-ending threats. Like, especially with the introduction of Belveth, I assumed, as many in the community did, that, like, the Void was gonna be the next big focus point, because, like, Belveth had that story where she's sending Kaisa to the Freljord, to try and take on the Watchers up there, because they are a rival to Belveth's power. And so I thought, okay, that's where League of Legends is sort of going with, like, the next big storyline that they want to push is what's going on with the Void and the Freljord. And we're going to get, like Lysandra and Sejuani and Ash's story coming to some kind of a head and undergoing some kind of, like climax. Not a final climax, necessarily. But now with Arcane, now with Riot pivoting so hard to Noxus, Like, Mordekaiser is the thing, right? LeBlanc's motivation is Mordekaiser. Everything she does, everything she wants to do, all of her plans, all of her manipulations, all of her cruelty, all of it is justified in that she needs to keep this fucking undead revenant murder king in the afterlife. He needs to not come back, or if he does come back, we need a way to deal with him, because he's a world-ending threat, right? That's the whole justification for LeBlanc to be doing what she's doing. So if there is like a League of Legends show set in Noxus that's coming out in God knows how many years, like who knows, it could take ages, could be tomorrow for all I know, then that would have to be in there somewhere, right? Like at some point, LeBlanc as a character would have to voice that, right? Like bring Mordekaiser up as a factor. It's like you have no, like, whatever heroes confront her, like Mel confronts LeBlanc at the end of a like long campaign of cat and mouse, back and forth, whatever, and then LeBlanc shows Mel, like, this is the thing I'm dealing with right now. Like, everything I do, it's all about that shit right there. Your mother was willing to make sacrifices for the greater good, and so am I. Like, something like that, right? And that's interesting to me. Like after Viego and the Ruination was such a disappointment in so many ways, I did not think that they were going to push for Mordekaiser as, like, a major plot point. Because, like, League of Legends, the Runeterra universe has, like, 9 to 14 world-ending threats sort of boiling in the background at any one moment, right? Like, the Darkin could reunite and come back and, like, restart the Darkin Wars, thrusting the whole planet into, like, total chaos. The World Runes are out there somewhere, and Ryze is doing his best to collect them, but someone finds them and, well, oops, all of a sudden everyone has magic nukes again. Aurelian Sol is just kind of waiting for his opportunity to destroy Runeterra. He's being held back by his crown for now, but that's very much a temporary arrangement, and once that crown breaks, he's coming to Runeterra, and, like, he's tearing up Mount Targon first, and then probably the rest of the planet is not going to do so hot out of having a star-forging dragon god be pissed at us for existing. Or us, I say, as though I live there. And, like, then there's the Void, then there is Mordekaiser, like, then there is the Shadow Isles, right? Like, the threat of Viego's return is also there as, like, a world-ending level threat of, like, if Viego is able to unleash the Ruination once more. Like, oh my god. So there's a lot of world-ending threats sort of hovering over Runeterra at any one point in time. Kind of similar to, like, in the Marvel Universe, we have, like, Thanos, but then also Galactus at the same time. It was like, oh, there's a world-ending threat every 2 minutes. Maybe Doctor Doom will become a god tomorrow. Who knows? Well, he wouldn't end the world, except probably, like, except in the way that he would remake the world in his own image. That's a different conversation. Point being, I'm interested that we are seeing Mordekaiser as a motivating threat for LeBlanc being brought up now, like, immediately, right? Like, because I would have thought, my thinking was that if Mordekaiser was going to get brought up, rather, it was going to be at the end of, like, the first season of whatever show, right? Like, even, like, if the Noxus show is supposed to be 2 seasons as well, or whatever, like, whatever plan they have, Mordekaiser was going to be, like, the stinger at the very end, right? Like, Mordekaiser was going to be like Thanos in the Marvel Universe, in that there's a long and desperate struggle against LeBlanc and her terrible machinations and Swain, betrayal, blah, 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 like, back and forth, and then at the very end of all of that, it turns out, like, oh, there was a bigger threat lurking in the background who outstrips all of... I thought Mordekaiser was gonna be sort of held back as, like, oh, shit, this is what it's been all about the whole time, as a reveal for, like, the casual audience who aren't as, like, steeped in League of Legends lore as I am. Although, really, I seem to have forgotten a pretty substantial part of Vladimir's story. For some reason in my head, I always had it that Vladimir was a later ally, like after LeBlanc had sealed away Mordekaiser, so that then she made an alliance with Vladimir, who was sort of, like, unconnected to the whole sealing of Mordekaiser. I guess I was wrong about that. Cool, interesting. That does make the cinematic, the Welcome to Noxus cinematic, it annoys me even more now, because Vladimir in that cinematic is, like, unsure and uncertain and nervous, and it's like, you're taking a terrible risk with all of this, like, oh, you let, like, the arcane run wild in Piltover, and that was a little bit of a terrible risk, wasn't it? And that doesn't, like, if Vladimir was part of this, if he was around since, like, oh yeah, let's take on the undying warlord who threatens to end the world, and he's like, yeah, no, I'll be a part of that. It's weird to me that he was, like, freaked out by Victor doing his little nonsense thing in Piltover. That's weird to me that Vladimir would be unnerved by anything, that he would ever display any kind of nervousness if he's that ancient and he was a part of sealing Mordekaiser away like 500 years ago. That's odd to me. That Vladimir then would be the nervous of the two of them, like the sort of high-strung, because that's never really been his character to me, and certainly I wouldn't think that that's his character if he was there. Like, I would think that he would be as aloof and as experienced and as confident as LeBlanc is. So that characterization in the cinematic now annoys me even more, because, like, that characterization can be justified if Vladimir is someone who came along later, after the sealing of Mordekaiser, right? If he was like this hedonistic little vampire fuckboy that you picked up later, because he's powerful and useful, but he doesn't really have the lived experience of dealing with Mordekaiser, then that's why LeBlanc is the one who's more calm, who's more, like, collected, who has the vision, and he's the one who's a little bit more unsure, because there's a difference in experience between them. So then, now it's like, but if he was there, and he was, like, actively a part of like, sealing Mordekaiser away, I don't understand why he was in that scene being nervous about anything. But that's nothing to do with the motion comic here. It does annoy me that there's no credits. I think that's actually kind of shitty. I think that's a bit shitty of Riot. Like, did I just miss it back at the very beginning? No. Doesn't look like it. Okay, hang on. Let me just see if Spider Axe has tweeted about it. I see the writer. Let's see. It was written by Riot 2 Weevils, yeah, who also handled Riot. It's edited by Anastasia Basil. Right, but who's the artist, though? How the hell is there not an artist's credit on this? Okay, hang on. It's gotta be on the wiki, then. Like, it has to be on the wiki. What was this thing called? Bringer of Ruin. Let me just see here. There's no artist credit. Even the wiki doesn't have it. At least not yet. Hey, when is this story from? It's by Connor. I'm sorry. I'm sort of looking around the universe page now, trying to see if they've put it up as a comic, maybe with a credit on it. I'm genuinely pretty annoyed by this. There should be a credit front and center on this. That's standard in the industry. Like, if you don't even have it in your fucking comics section, the universe page has a section for comics. That genuinely really kind of annoys me. Who the hell? It doesn't say anywhere. That, okay, right? If there's a Riot or whoever watches this video, get a fucking artist credit on that. Also the writing credit, also the editing credit. Like, this is indecent. This is not okay. This is, like, if you put that shit out there, if you publish that shit, a credit needs to go on that fucking thing. That's the least you can do. Like, I'll allow for the possibility that there's some behind the scenes some kind of NDA situation. It could be the artist prefers to remain anonymous and doesn't want to be credited. I will allow for that as a possibility. That's not impossible, but it will be weird. If you're working on something like this for League of Legends, most artists would be like, yeah, no, please put my name on that, actually, because that's a big job. And I don't care if it's an internal, like, if it's a Rioter who works at Riot, or if it's, like, an outsourced contract piece. I don't care. Like, there needs to be credits on that shit, so that can be documented. I don't think that's okay. I really don't think that's okay. Yeah. I have to imagine that they will release that information to the wiki at some point, but I'm sorry. Right now I'm just scrolling through. I'm trying to see if any of the wiki people that I usually follow have tweeted about it. Doesn't seem that way. No one seems to have posted it. No one seems to have credited it. Yeah, I'm genuinely kind of pissed about that. That is not okay. That's actually not okay. Like there needs to be an available credit for the people who do this kind of creative work. Especially if it's outsourced, but also if it's internal. Like, this is one thing that, like, this is not just Riot, this is the games industry in general. The games industry has a fucking crediting problem. They have a fucking problem doing it. They have a fucking problem with doing it. And they can get mad when you insist on it sometimes. And it rankles me. Especially when, like, clearly this is a high profile. This was published in the League of Legends client. A lot of work went into not only the artwork, but a bunch of the animation and a bunch of the post-processing and the VFX and the integration of this thing into the client. Given that, proper credit to the artists and indeed the engineers, like the people behind the engineering on this thing, the people who did the programming, the people who did, like, those credits need to be available somewhere. It's not okay to just anonymize that and pretend like, oh, Riot Games, the company, did it. No, they didn't. People did that. Okay, yeah, sorry, that's me on my soapbox. That's me on on. Oh yeah, I used to work as a commission artist. I've been snubbed of credit before, and it's fucking miserable experience. Usually Riot are better about this. Like, usually with their comics work, they have been very good about properly assigning credit. So this kind of fucking sucks, especially when the art is so good. Like, that's the other thing, right? It's not just that I'm annoyed on, like, a moral level about, like, the lack of credit. It's also, I want to look up this fucking artist and follow their work. Because this is fucking gorgeous work, or these artists. I would have to imagine it could be the work of a singular artist. Again, I feel like it's a very different style. It could be what's their name? The person who one who is responsible for the comics in Sukling. It could be Sukling, who is a Rioter, like who has worked at Riot for many, many years and has been one of like the big comic artists internally. I don't like if it is, then this is a different style than she usually works in. You might have seen her, like, if you follow League artists and stuff like that, she has done some absolutely astonishingly good Star Guardian and KDA fan art and fan comics that are just wonderful. And, like, some wonderful reinterpretations of characters like Seraphine also. Like, Sukling has some amazingly good work set in the League of Legends universe. I would not be surprised if this is Sukling's work. Some of it does feel like it could be that style. But there needs to be an official fucking credit. Hang on. Let me... Yeah, because Sukling nuked their Twitter. Didn't they? Or did they? Let me see. Well... Yeah, I mean, they haven't posted anything on Twitter since a few reposts in December. Yeah. It could be them. Like... Let me try and bring it up for you. So you can see it. Nope, that's Firefox again. That's the wrong window. There. Yeah, because like Sukling was like one of the leads on the Soul Fighters. Now I'm just sort of getting caught up in looking at her work because she's so fucking good. Like she's genuinely like one of the like most expressive, fun, interesting artists that Riot has. Like Seraphine and Oriana, friends. Isn't that the best shit you've ever seen in your life? It could be Sukling's work. I'm not 100% sure. This thing. This fucking one comic page of Seraphine deploying her empathy. Like, hearing the Hextech voice caught inside of Camille's heart and, like, confronting her fearlessly. God, what a version of the character. And, like, the fucking outfit that she's wearing, too, is like, oh. So this could be Sukling's work. Like stylistically, it's not too far off. But there's no credit, and that really fucking bothers me. That really genuinely upsets me quite badly, actually. I don't think that's okay. Okay, well, not much I can do about it except to sit here and complain about it. But if you see this, anyone who works at Riot, could you make sure that that credit gets posted at some point somewhere? That this artist gets the credit that they deserve, like the motion artists as well, like the visual effects artists who worked on this as well, get their laurels because they deserve them. And maybe like hey, what if you put a little here at the end screen, at least a little credit down here in the lower quadrant here that says art by, edited by, script by. What if you did that? Wouldn't that be a good thing? I think that would be a good thing. I think you should do that. I think it's a little bit indecent that you haven't. Anyway, very good motion comic. Many implications for the lore. Reminded me, or didn't remind me so much as it revealed to me that I had misunderstood something about Vladimir's lore for a while. In part because it's been so long since I read it. Last time I really engaged with Vladimir's lore, I think, was Yeah, it was back when that story came out. The fuck, what was it called? The story where he invites an artist into his home, and we get like this meditation on the way that he sheds and changes his identity, and consumes people in order to sort of remake himself over and over again. Yeah, this is like I said, I don't think the wall carving thing here, aesthetically, I don't think they really work. They don't really look like the way that wall carvings would look. They don't really do the kind of stylization that they do, but like, it's a little glitch. But like, the color, the values, the contrast. Because like the other person I'm reminded of with this artwork here is what's her name? Nina Vakueva? A little bit, not entirely. Like but I'm certainly getting shades of her style. She's the one who did the War Mother comic, the Ash and Sejuani comic, some years back. There's some aspects of like the paneling and stuff that feel reminiscent of that, but not. And definitely also something about the coloring. But again, coloring and line art might be two very different artists on that one. I want to know who the fuck did this. I really, that really rankles me. Anyway, I've complained about that enough. Cool motion comic. Interesting. Please don't fucking make this, like... Please don't make this into an Exalted Mordekaiser skin. Please stop making Exalted skins. Please stop doing that, Riot. Just make it a normal skin, please, so that I don't have to give it an F ranking on principle. Very interesting motion comic. I should reread Vladimir's lore. And probably, like, reacquaint myself with Mordekaiser, as well. Because, like, if he's being brought up as... like, positioned as, like, a background antagonist for, like, whatever Noxus show it is that Riot is making. I want to know what his lore is now, because they're definitely going to change it. One of the funniest things, by the way, before I end, I've talked shit about Mordekaiser before, right? Like, I did that in my What's the Deal with Mordekaiser video way back when he got his update. When I called him, like, a whiny little Karen-ass piss baby, right? Like, I called him a fucking loser, because he spent his entire life being, the worst asshole on Earth, and then he got to the afterlife. It's like, why is no one throwing me a party? I'm gonna conquer the world again! Some people got mad at me. They were like, that's so unfair to him. Like, actually, he's really driven, and he's got a really strong willpower, and actually, he's like a really cool, interesting character. It's like, no, he's not. I'm sorry. No, he's not. He's a petulant, greedy little shithead. But he's a petulant, greedy little shithead with, like, the money and resources to do a fucking Warhammer 40k Emperor of Mankind cosplay. That's all he is. I'm sorry, like, I refuse to have any reverence for him. I refuse to find him cool. Because, like, there's nothing cool about him. He doesn't have any cool aspirations. He doesn't want to do anything. He doesn't want to make anything cool, or, like, he doesn't even want to build a particularly cool edifice. He just wants to kill everyone and make them worship him forever, which is, like, that is the saddest, most pathetic, boring fantasy that a person can ever have. That makes him a good villain, to be clear. I like Mordekaiser as a character because, like, that's a very true representation of these kinds of petty little tyrannical dipshits, right? Like, this specific kind of person is a kind of person, right? Like, that there's a kind of personality that acts this way, that, like, projects their entitlement to the world out on absolutely everything and everyone else, right? This masturbatory obsession with power above all other things. That's a real person who exists, and this is how that real person would like to think of themselves, right? Like, I'm gonna be, like, bad as the tyrant, like, the strongest guy ever. Like, this is sort of an extreme portrayal of that internal self-conception, right? Like that, like, oh yeah, I'm dark, I'm scary, but I'm powerful, and I deserve to rule, right? Like, people should listen to me, because I'm the one with the will and the strength and the power to, like, pursue my vision and do what must be done. But they are all of them pathetic losers. Every single fucking one of them are sad, small, empty little men, right? Mordekaiser is literally a hollow suit of armor, right? Like, there's literally no interiority there. He is just the Iron Revenant. He is just, like, we have Sauron at home. He is genuinely, like, even, like, the Sauron thing was brought up a lot about his character design when he was first revealed, right? Like, because obviously that's clearly a point of inspiration for him. I kind of liked that, like, because Sauron is actually kind of a complex villain. When you dive into, like, the really deep, extended sort of lore universe thing of, like, it goes back to, well, not that, it's, Sauron himself is not complicated. Sauron himself is also just like, I am the embodiment of evil, like, taking over from Melkor, who is the devil in this universe, right? But the complexity in Sauron is, like, the complexity of what he appeals to. Like, Sauron is specifically a seducer, right? He's someone whose evil and whose power very much comes from the flaws and the weaknesses of others, right? Like, that's where he acts as a foil in the same way that Melkor did to the creation of Eru Ilúvatar, in that he takes advantage of flaws in that creation, right? Like, and so, like, in that sense, spites God in his universe. Mordekaiser is, like, the even sort of more petty version of that, because it's not even, like, he's not even rebelling against a god, right? He's not even rebelling against anything. Like, he got to the afterlife, there was nothing there, and he was so offended that there wasn't a god there to tell him that he was the coolest, most special boy, that he was like, I'm gonna be God, and I'm gonna tell myself that I'm the coolest, most special boy, because I deserve it, right? Like, he's even more sort of pathetic because he doesn't even have a god to attack and dethrone, right? He doesn't even have something divine to rebel against. He's just doing it because he's small and petty and petulant. And I like that. I like that as a part of his character. Like, that's the interiority you should... If you want to do a character who's this much of a cartoonishly evil, like, stereotypical fantasy bad guy supervillain, that's the kind of interiority you need to give them, right? Like, all of this projected might and power and self-regard, all of it, this hollow shell around an internal core, which is just nothing, right? Which is nothing worthwhile, nothing useful, nothing constructive, nothing of any meaning or value except mine, more. I deserve everything. I deserve more things. Like, I didn't get what I was owed, and everyone owes me everything. So I'm just going to take it because fuck you, right? Like, that's the pettiness at the core of a villain like that, and I like that. But people got mad at me for that. Like, there was a bunch of people in my comments who were like, that's so unfair. Like, he's actually cool, actually. Because, like, oh, like, so, like, isn't it cool kind of how he has so much willpower that he manages, like, defy death? And it's like, no, that's not cool. You know what would have been cool? If he had used any of the power that he had to do anything good ever. That is cool. Like, that is interesting. That's difficult. That's way harder. Like raising an army and conquering the world is relatively easy. Violence is the easiest thing that humans do. Building a better world, that's hard. That's cool. That's something that's interesting and admirable and complicated. Like, conquest is simple. Maintaining it, bureaucracy, like building a nation, that's hard. And Mordekaiser never did that. Like, that's one of the things about it. He never built a nation. He never built anything that lasted. Everyone just like, oh, cool, he's dead now. Everyone's just happy about that. And try to move on from him as fast as fucking possible. Anyway, this is a complete tangent. It's currently 5 p.m., and that sounds like a perfectly reasonable time to be awake for you guys, right? But I woke up tonight at around 9:30 p.m.? Yeah, 9:30 p.m. That's when I woke up. That was my morning, so I'm a little bit loopy. I'm a little bit tired, and fuck it, I'm just gonna click stop recording now.